So we are in the second part of the William the Conqueror series by HistoryMarche.
The precarious minority of Duke William of Normandy was firmly set aside with his victory alongside King Henry I of France at the Battle of Valladolid. Yet the young William the Bastard would have many struggles ahead of him before the iconic conquest that would immortalize him in the annals of history. In the years following Valladolid, William consolidated his hold on the duchy, tearing down unlicensed castles and generally enforcing his own authority on his irritable vassals. Guy of Brion had fled following his defeat at the battle, holding out in his near-impregnable castle at Brion for 3 years before William slowly starved him out by building siege castles. With this challenge to his authority dealt with, the great and the good surrounding the young duke.
Details are scarce on specific dates, though since Matilda was witnessing charters as William's wife in 1051, it's likely the marriage took place in around 1050.
Were eager to have him married to secure the succession and newly strengthened regime. It was decided that William should wed Matilda, daughter of the Count of Flanders, a wise match given it would secure an ally to the east. Curiously, given subsequent events, it may have been William and Count Baldwin's overlord, King Henry himself, who suggested the match. The potential bride being his own niece, and thus of royal stock. Despite the initial objection
the objection of the Pope, Leo, was likely due to Baldwin's attack on the Imperial Palace. In 1049, Emperor Henry III was a relative of and had appointed Leo.
Pope to the match on grounds of consanguinity. The two were wed by 1051. Yet, though William of Poitiers has the Norman capital of Rouen celebrating the match, across the Channel, Duke William's cousin, King Edward the Confessor, likely lamented it, the Flemish being a traditional haven of England's enemies. By 1051, King Edward also faced a crisis that would in time ultimately transform the prospects of William. In what began as a dispute over the appointment of archiepiscopal positions eventually devolved into open conflict between Edward and his most powerful earl, Godwin. On visiting the realm in 1051, Eustace, the king's brother-in-law, was involved in a brawl with some of the men of Dover, resulting in deaths on both sides. Godwin exercised a powerful influence over the king. Resentful of the overmighty earl's power, Edward leapt at the chance to topple Godwin, using the incident at Dover to corner Godwin into a dilemma. Either punish his own people at Dover, or rebel. Having chosen the latter, Edward had forced Godwin's exile to Flanders in 1051. It was around this time that the Confessor likely confirmed a choice made earlier at a council in March that William of Normandy be his preferred successor to the throne of England. Indeed, with Godwin banished, Edward set aside his daughter.
Yeah, I remembered this from Oversimplified. Apparently, they made a vow over holy relics, right? And then I believe it was Harold Godwinson, who I can't remember if he had a promise too, or if he just rushed, his coronation after Edward and just took it. I can't remember specifically how Oversimplified put it, at least with the Harold Godwinson situation. But I do remember at least William essentially getting a promise from Edward over holy relics.
Daughter Queen Edith, hoping to divorce and remarry. This episode is brought to you. The D version of the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle confirms a visit by the Duke. Then soon came Duke William from beyond the sea, with a great retinue of Frenchmen, and the king received and as many of his companions as it pleased him, and let him go again. According to the historian Mark Morris, the descriptive received meaning as a vassal. But Edward took William as his man indicates a mutual bond of convenience. King Edward was no fool, and likely knew Godwin and his family would make a bid to return. One safeguard to his own newly won authority, as well as to offset the new Norman-Flemish alliance, was to draw William closer to him with an offer of preference for his succession to the throne of England. If this was the plan, then events unravelled this ambition, given Godwin's triumphant return to power in 1052. The exiled Earl of Wessex had not been idle during the previous months in Flanders, and, leveraging support within England, he raided along the coast, ultimately compelling Edward's climb down in London by later 1052. Duke William was likely informed of this ill turn of fortune by the newly exiled Robert of Jumièges in the same year, though the banished archbishop...
Okay, wait, he was the first Archbishop of Canterbury. Okay, Chief Royal as well as an... Okay, alright, I see. Advocate there.
In the same year, though the banished archbishop did drag along with him valuable Godwins and hostages that William gladly accepted. Yet the English succession was far from William's only concern around this time. Geoffrey Martel, the formidable Count of Anjou, pursued an expansionist foreign policy by moving into Maine in 1047, and even seizing the Bishop of Le Mans and clapping him in irons. However, such brazen acts provoked the ire of William's ally and overlord, King Henry, who after summoning an alliance of his vassals, pushed into Angevin territory. Naturally, William, given his debt of gratitude for Henry's aid at Valledun, backed his sovereign, participating in the capture of Meulian Castle near Angers itself. In retaliation, Geoffrey pushed north in 1051 by Alençon, well within William's own backyard. William reacted by raising his own force.
Yeah, Joffrey's interesting in his expansion. It doesn't seem to be like very subtle. He's just, I'm gonna start taking stuff, and I guess it doesn't strike me as very wise the way he went about it, just overly aggressive, and I'm not sure he factored in just how everyone would react, right? And to go back a little further with Edward, yeah, there definitely is a lot of interesting political maneuvers he's doing, like trying to get William close to him. Again, it's all a bit like interesting to just see how the politics are starting to get all over the place, and William's kind of all over the place too. He's got it good with the King of France, he's got it good with Flanders, and now, you know, the King of England, Edward, kind of wants to get on his good graces, get him on his side. So everyone's kind of like, I don't know, kind of want William with them. So that's kind of interesting.
And heading south to meet Geoffrey head-on. The Count sensibly avoided open battle, instead strengthening the defenses of Domfront.
Did I say Joffrey? I apologize, it's Geoffrey. I'm sorry, my head read Joffrey.
And daring William to attack it, in the hopes of drawing the Duke into a long siege of attrition, which would drain Norman resources and the will to fight. Having committed to the siege at Domfront, William also seized the initiative in confronting the men of Alençon. In what would have been a stunning success, the Duke rode hard for the town, almost catching the men there completely unawares. Luckily for them, the burghers of the town slammed the gates shut. It was then that an infamous series of events progressed. The brash men of Alençon, certain that William could not lay siege to both them and Domfront simultaneously, mocked William's illegitimacy by reportedly shouting, "Hides, hides for the tanner," referring to his grandfather.
Yeah, unwise. I remember that from Oversimplified. Also, I think he said they were like beating on hides or stuff like that. I don't know if they did that specifically. That's how Oversimplified put it. But yeah, maybe angering William just isn't the best idea, but oh well.
These insults struck a dangerous nerve and provoked a brutal response from William, who marched 32 recently captured citizens of Alençon to within sight of their people and had their hands and feet hacked off.
Oh,
This
yeah. Yeah, like I said, William, known for his brutality. A brutal man in a brutal world. Oh, that's terrifying. I love the little use of the memes he does.
gruesome spectacle was enough to induce the immediate surrender of the defenders in the citadel, and, as word spread to the defenders of Domfront, they too gave in following assurances that they would not suffer the fate of the 32 at Alençon.
Wow, great use of psychological warfare on William's part. He literally scared them crapless. And rightfully so, right? If I saw that, I'd also throw in the towel. I'm like, heck no, I'm not. This is a guy you don't mess with. But dang, man, that's wild.
Importantly too, the Belema border region was now firmly placed under William's influence, with one of his chief lieutenants, Roger of Montgomery, marrying Mabel of Belema. The siege of Alençon was probably over by the end of 1051, allowing the Duke's aforementioned journey to England. Unfortunately for William, these successes also concerned King Henry. Henry had viewed the rise of Geoffrey as the greater evil, but by August of 1052, a charter places Geoffrey, Count of Anjou, at the king's court in Orléans. William was clearly the greater threat, given both his success in the 1051 campaign and then his close bond and promised succession in England.
Okay, you're seeing the change now. Everything's falling up. Suddenly, Henry's fully aware. One of their earlier meetings was William charging to essentially meet Henry after Henry invaded Normandy, right? That's a pretty telling encounter, at least in this series, you know, an earlier meeting between the two. And now Henry is starting to see William on the rise. Because like I said, William had great connections with Flanders. England's trying to get him on his side. And also, he was pretty good with the French. So all these powers are like William's kind of getting cozy with, as it were. And he's already proving himself a great commander. Look at what he just did. You know, taking two of these strongholds, essentially, without having to losing any shedding of his own blood, as it were. The blood was definitely shed, though. And I think Henry is starting to realize how competent William is. And again, an overly competent vassal instantly becomes a rival or a danger. It was only a matter of time, right? You never outshine your superiors, as it were, and Henry is technically the superior in terms of, like, you know, William kind of playing the vassal role. But now he's starting to see this guy's a bit too much. You know, he's getting too powerful. Time to limit him. As is usual in the history of Europe, as we've seen through so many videos, when one guy starts getting too strong, instantly becomes a target.
Given this, it's hardly surprising Henry decided to act as a vassal, with the vast resources and wealth of England behind them, had the capacity to pose a serious challenge. King Henry's chance came with the rebellion of another of William's relations in 1053. William, Count of Arques, was a legitimate son of Duke Richard II, and though a prominent figure in the Duke's government during his youth, relations had soured, the Count even deserting the ducal army during the siege of Domfront. For this, William had confiscated the Count's castle at Arques.
With ride check?
Oh.
In the first half of 1053, Count William struck back by bribing the garrison of the castle and reoccupying it. Duke William responded quickly, fearing the entirety of Upper Normandy may declare for the Count. the Duke succeeded in confining his rival within the castle, while building his own siege castle, hoping to starve him out. Alas, the Count of Arc had the backing of King Henry himself, who intended to crush the upstart Duke through overwhelming force. He planned for 2 royal armies to invade the duchy simultaneously, with the first under Enguerrand,
Count of
Ponthieu,
led part of Henry's army against some Normans who sallied out of the siege castle. Okay. Oh my goodness. Yeah, Henry's going all in, trying to take on William. William essentially has to take on 2 armies, right? One by the king and one by a count. How's he gonna deal with this? Holy crap.
invading eastern Normandy, with his own advancing on Rouen itself. In addition, Geoffrey Martel would come up from the south. Luckily for William, the invasions were poorly coordinated. Enguerrand's men were surprised and dealt heavy casualties at Saint-Aubin-sur-Sea on October 25th, with their general too being cut down. Worse for Henry, his man in Arc was forced into ignominious surrender, once again after promises that he and his men would retain.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Dang, the Normans crushed that French contingent, sending even King Henry on the run. Wow.
In their hands and feet. Unfortunately for William, his success only enraged King Henry, who invaded with an even more formidable force in February of 1054.
Okay. So Henry seems to be relying on brute willpower. Manpower. Okay, there's gonna be a pitched battle. So I'm interested, because William does seem to not have the numbers advantage at the moment. But, again, I think he's proving that he might be the better commander. We'll see. I mean, I don't know everything of Henry, but, we'll see with William, though.
William's victories had also provoked envy and concern in other great men, such as William of Aquitaine and Theobald of Blois, as well as Geoffrey Martel himself, all of whom accompanied their king in a two-pronged invasion of Normandy.
Dang, he's really, like, it's not really a coalition because they're technically his vassals. I mean, yeah, but still, he's assembling everyone just to jump William. Again, William, I'm not sure, his army, at least depicted with the squares, seems to be lower compared to his enemies, but he does seem to have better quality. But is that enough? And I assume he wins, because of the title, How Did William Defend Normandy? And obviously, he was freed up to go to England later, but you know what I mean.
The Allied force under Henry's brother, Odo, entered into the northeastern area of the duchy, while the king himself marched from the southeast, the likely objective being for the two to close a large pincer around Rouen itself. William mirrored the division of the invading forces by splitting his own, leading one by himself by shadowing and harassing the kings as he advanced. Contrary to popular perception, pitched battles were not often sought given the huge stakes involved, usually combatants only resorting to such a desperate gamble when at their last ebb, as William had done with...
So, from what I'm seeing here, that's an interesting thing. Pitched battles weren't that common? Oh, wow. But, is he using guerrilla warfare? Every time little bits of Henry's men come out, you notice the Norman army just picking them off in the woods. Kind of using guerrilla tactics, right? That's like guerrilla warfare, and just trying to pick off Henry as much as he can in small bites.
Henry at Valadon. Instead, the Duke harassed the royal army, picking off those foolish enough to break off for supplies. In this way, William aimed to bleed the enemy dry and force its retreat. While William dealt with the king, another Norman force led by Robert the Count of Eu, Hugh of Gournay, and Walter Giffard moved to counter the northern royal army. The invading army under Odo were confident of a free passage to harry the land and people as they pleased, and having entered close to Amol, the invaders cut a trail of blood, rape, and pillage through the land before reaching the town of Mortemer. In the town, according to Wace, Odo's men by day delivered the country up to pillage and devoted the night to revelry, searching out the wine and killing the cattle, eating and drinking their fill. However, the Normans were not idle, having carefully concealed their camps and movements in the woods and forests of the country. Informed of Odo's movements by their own spies, the barons decided to march through the night to surprise and eliminate.
Alright, so I was gonna say, Odo, he's partying, he's having fun. That's never an optimal position to be in. Because that's like the perfect opportunity for a sneak attack, and that exactly seems like what is about to happen. Now they're all gonna converge on him through multiple sides while he's having fun at the night. Yeah, so far the Normans have just been using, guerrilla tactics, stealth, doing everything they can to negate the French and their seemingly larger armies. So that's actually a really smart approach, though.
The incautious French. They reached the town just prior to sunrise and blocked every exit in before setting fires throughout the place.
Oh.
Panic and confusion spread as swiftly as the flames, the French scurrying towards the exits, only to be met with the enraged faces and war cries of the Normans. The fight—
Dang, that is hardcore. Literally locking them in with a burning... That's hardcore.
At these checkpoints was fierce and hard-fought. The French likely spurred on to fight to the last, given there was no other means of escape. However, the initial surprise, general unpreparedness of the invaders, and determination of the Normans proved decisive. Odo's army was ground down to defeat in a general melee that lasted from daybreak until 3 p.m. Odo escaped the bite of a Norman blade, instead being taken captive, as was Guy the Count of Ponthieu, who would languish for 2 years in captivity in Bayeux. Valerand, the brother of the recently deceased Enguerrand of Ponthieu, was not so lucky.
Dang.
William learned quickly of his baron's success and took the opportunity to strike a psychological blow to Henry's army. Sending a man to where the royal army was encamped.
Okay, we've kicked your... According to the source, William's envoys arrived at the French camp around midnight and shouted the news through the night from the top of a tree. I love William's unique different approaches to battle. He's, in this video, has used guerrilla warfare, psychological warfare, as shown with this and the previous sieges. And again, the way he's taken on these invasions have been kind of amazing. He is an amazing general. And like I said, I mainly knew about the Battle of Hastings, which didn't give me a full view. I mean, it still is an impressive W on William's part, no doubt about it, and his most famous battle, but it was a really close battle. William almost lost, Here, though, he's dominating, in his own way, which is just very impressive.
William ordered that he disrupt the French as they slept with the words, "Frenchmen, Frenchmen, arise, make ready for your flight, ye sleep." William
could have pursued, but instead commented, he has had quite enough to trouble and cross him. He's so confident. He's like, I've dominated. He can go.
Keep too long. Go forth at once to bury your friends who lie dead at Mortemer. Demoralization soon soured into full-blown panic. Henry ordered a general withdrawal, heading back to Paris, while the other great lords retired to their respective domains. William had proved himself a truly skilled commander, having successfully turned back this latest threat to his authority through use of Fabian tactics, good intelligence, and the decisive actions of his own lieutenants.
Again, perfect way. One of the best ways I've seen anyone counter an invasion ever. That was beyond impressive.
King Henry, for his part, fumed as he conceded a grudging peace with his over-mighty vassal. In exchange for those men taken at Mortemer, he pledged non-interference in William's expansion to the detriment of Geoffrey. For Henry, though, William's rise as the preeminent lord of his kingdom still remained an intolerable reality he would soon move to crush once and for all. If you stayed around this far, thank you for watching. Don't Patreon, clicking the thanks button below.
Okay, that was awesome. And tomorrow we're gonna cover part 3 of this series.